Hello everyone and welcome. In the previous episode we talked about the importance of Old Testament, and we want to continue with that series today. And joining us here today we have Renson Matthew. Renson is a student of Hebrew culture, the Jewish culture, the language, and he's also doing his studies in Hebrew as a language particularly, and we are so delighted to have him today here with us.
Thank you.
And we want to go ahead and do this series of video with him in understanding the Old Testament and the different aspects that we need to take here. We need to look into when we want to understand the Old Testament, like the language, the culture, and all that aspect. So to begin with, Renson, how important it is to have at least some basic idea about the Jewish culture and the language when it comes to understanding the Old Testament?
Well, first of all, one of the reasons why I would say the Jewish culture and the language is very important is because that's the language in which God communicated to the people of Israel.
Right.
And that's the language in which God spoke, which when we understand, it becomes more personal for us to have a relationship with God.
Right. So, could you outline some basic understanding about Hebrew language that usually a common Bible reader wouldn't know, that you have acquired while you're studying the language?
Yeah, so it's very interesting to know that the alphabets in Hebrew language are of very significance. One is not like our language. If you see, we talk about alphabets like A as in apple, B as in ball, C as in cat, D as in dog, and which has no significant meaning to it. But in a Hebrew language, every alphabet has got a numerical value to state first of all, and it's got a meaning to that, a significance, and most importantly, every alphabet has got a pictorial meaning to that added. So when you talk about the alphabets like Aleph and Bet, the first two alphabets in Hebrew language, Aleph and Bet combined together, we get the English origin of alphabet.
Wow.
That's something interesting which I never knew till I learned. And secondly, if you see, every language has got a pictorial meaning to it. So, for example, we take the alphabet Bet, which is the second alphabet in a Hebrew language, and Bet has a picture of a house or a window, and that shows the house. And from that we get the term, like if you see El is God, and when we combine together Bet and El, we have Bet El, the house of God.
Wow.
So that is how the Hebrew language is very significant for a person to learn, and it is very interesting for them.
So you say that each alphabet had those kinds of understanding and story behind it.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So, and when you understand the Hebrew language, the alphabets, the names and the places that is mentioned in the Bible become more personalized and meaningful for us.
Wow. That means we have a lot of stuff with each letters to learn. Anyways, we'll go ahead in a later episode. So let me continue with the question. So what are the other aspects that an Old Testament reader should consider? Since like when we look into our Indian context, most of our Bible readers are people with very basic understanding, very basic education level. And they can't go into an advanced studies of Hebrew, particularly as a language, just to understand the Old Testament. So without even going into the study of language as a Hebrew as a language, what are some of the basic aspects that they should know or consider when they are reading the Old Testament?
See, one of the first things that we need to understand is when the Old Testament was written, it was written for a particular people group.
Right.
And that is the Israelites.
Right.
And when the people group Israelites God was addressing, it had a culture, it had a custom to it,
right,
and it had a particular significance of what is happening at present in the world and in the church,
right,
which is a shadow of what is seen in the Old Testament. So it's about a people group, their customs and their cultures, which is what we understand from understanding and knowing the Old Testament more personalized through the Jewish studies. Yeah.
So you mean to say that the culture and context are the two very important things too?
Absolutely. When you talk about culture and specifically, we see that the Jewish people have a lot of customs that they follow, which probably we would not understand why it is. Like it can be the custom of the purification that they have to go through, or the custom of having to do the sacrifices, or the custom of praying. Jewish people pray, right? Now, when you see all that, it has got a significant meaning to that, which is added.
Right. So, what are these customs, or the custom? Are they important for us today, and how they are important for us today?
Yeah, very important, because I would like to highlight on one thing here. It's called as the bar mitzvah. Okay, and the mitzvah is nothing but the commandments of God. And the bar mitzvah, when we say bar in Hebrew language, means to say son who's taken or adopted. And we see in the Jewish culture, there is a three phase that a child till he grows up, he goes through. From the age of 1 till 6, it's the duty of a mother to teach the laws orally to the child.
Okay.
So from age 1 to 6, the mother teaches the laws and the commandments, the rules, everything orally. And then from 6 till 12, it's the duty of the father to teach the commandments of God. So again, from 6 to 12, the father teaches the commandments of God. And when the child turns 12, both the father and the mother bring them to a Jewish teacher who is well versed in the law. And they place their hands on this child and they say, we are responsible for teaching our child all these years the laws. Now we hand him over to you, trusting that you will teach him the commandments and the rules of God. And that process, that ceremony is called as the bar mitzvah, which means you're adopting, the teacher is adopting him as his own son to teach the laws. And we see this very significantly in the New Testament when Jesus was gone with his parents to the feast, and all of a sudden in the crowd Jesus is missing, and Mary and Joseph goes back into the synagogue and they see Jesus over there, and he says, I am with my father's business. Now when we read it, it's a common story. Jesus was in the temple, but when you understand the customs and when you understand the culture, we understand that there was a lot of meaning to it that is added. So actually what Jesus was doing, he was with the Jewish teachers learning the commandments of God.
Bar mitzvah. Yes. So I think this is just one of the things that you have highlighted. There are plenty more certain things to know about the customs and the culture. Thank you, Vincent, for giving us those insight and giving your time today. Friends, we are continuing this series with a lot of upcoming videos where we are going to deal with a lot of customary things that Jewish people held onto and that we saw in the New Testament to understand what was the significance of all those things that are happening, the underlying significance that we could understand from the Jewish culture, the customs and the language. So stay tuned in to more updates in this series on understanding the Old Testament. Thank you for watching. God bless you all.